My name is Paul Cutsinger, and I'm with Amazon. And today we're talking about evolving players to fans. One of the things we love to do at Amazon is help businesses get their ideas created and get them out to customers. So we do that with books, we do that with music, do that with movies, and of course we do it with apps as well. With the Amazon App Store, it's an Android-based app store. So if you have a game that works on Android, you can also launch it on the Amazon App Store and get it out to our customers there. As a part of looking at all those kinds of businesses and figuring out how to help them be really successful, we do a lot of work to analyze best practices. So for example, we've looked at how the top 50 games monetize, and then we break down how to help everybody monetize in the same way, share the best practices. This talk was born out of a question around developers saying, I have this really cool game, but it's not taking off. What's happening? How come that other game that doesn't look nearly as interesting as mine is going crazy, yet mine is not going crazy? And so this is sort of the evolution of that, and we'll talk about how to convert your players into actual fans and to help improve and lower your user acquisition costs. So first, it's kind of an interesting time in the world of apps. Right now we see that about 60% of mobile apps are above the app poverty line. This is a chart from Vision Mobile, and it shows that on our platform that's about what we're seeing. Across the industry, it's around 50%. So on the good side, that's a lot of people making some money and doing well. On the flip side, we can do better. We would really love to see that 60% be 70, 80, 90, and higher percent. We would love to help all these developers be super successful. And so that's where we're digging in and really trying to understand what can we do to help people make more and get more out of what they're trying to accomplish. So let's talk about what it takes to have a minimum viable product, and really to think of this as a minimum viable business, which is one step larger. The first part is you got to have a fun game. It's got to be engaging, exciting, something that people will play and not like run into issues with bugs or get bored with very quickly and so forth. And I talk to a lot of developers of different sizes, sometimes very small developers and sometimes very large developers. I often see that the smaller developers stop here. They get something that's really fun, but it isn't actually enough to be a business. So you've got to go one step further, which is find a way to get some revenue out of it. That's the way you can keep this going and turn a hobby into an actual business. And now sometimes this can be revenue. Most of the time this is often revenue. Other times this can be just projects of passion, but you need to be able to get what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're trying to promote a brand or a cause, that also can count in your monetization loop. You can see how it's actually affecting that. People often do this by charging for their apps or having in-app purchases or ads. And this is often measured with average revenue per user. Okay, the next component to getting this minimum viable business is you've got to have a way to attract customers that is lower than the cost of advertising alone. So you'll often hear about people saying, well, how do I advertise to get more folks? And that's good and often an important way to get the funnel going, get the machine running. But at the end of the day, you want to have your customers and mechanisms inside of your game that are drawing other people in. So this is often measured in how viral is your game with the K factor. It's measured in monthly active users, daily active users, these kinds of things. So these together form that minimum viable business I'm talking about. And actually I spend a lot of my time helping people get to here. As I described with the monetization talks that we do, or a few others, how to use different APIs and so forth, we get to here. But for this talk, let's go one step further. Let's assume that you've already got this. You've already got something exciting and you see that it can make money and you can see that it's attractive to customers. How do we go further? What are some trends we're seeing today? For this, I'll tell you a story. I love archery. I used to shoot archery. That's me in the hat right there. And the tall guy on the end, that's Rick McKinney. He was a gold medalist Olympian. and I was training for the Olympics and did a lot. I spent a lot of time shooting, and so I love it. I spent hours and hours. But how many people have ever worn a jersey that says their favorite archery team, or know who the top players are? It's really not. In fact, how many of my friends and family would come watch me shoot? Zero. It's really not a game for fans. It's really a game for a player. A player might love it. I thought it was great. But this is an example to me of one of these minimum viable products that on its own is fine and good, but it's never going to scale in a really huge way. If you compare that to other kinds of sports, here's an example with a soccer game. The fandom here is through the roof. If you look at that picture alone, you see the game itself on the field, but then the fans are in the crowd, and they're talking with their friends. They're having a great time amongst themselves. Even without playing the game, they're having fun. They're buying all sorts of gear, so there's another source of revenue. The other part is there are entire businesses set up around this fan base. So there are the vendors that are selling food and drinks. They're making their business because this game exists. There are businesses that happen before and after the game. So like there's a talk show host that's talking about the different athletes and what's going to happen and predicting things. There's sports books. There's all sorts of things happening around this game. The local bars probably got a special happening, so you can come over before or after the game and get stuff. If this game left the city, the fans would be outraged. They'd say, bring it back right now. That's the power of a fan base. It drives entire ecosystems and is very, very powerful. So the question is, can we do this in games? Can we get this style fan base in games? Here's a little bit of data from Newzoo, and it's talking about esports. So I would argue that one factor in fandom is esports. There are several, and we'll get into those. This is one just to give you a sense of the scope of the opportunity. In 2014, what is that? Yeah, 89 million viewers for esports. That's now, and it's projected to grow pretty aggressively. $194 million business today. I think that this is an indicator that there's something here, and it's possible for these games to really develop fan bases. So let's dig into what it would take to get a fan base going. So if we take that minimum viable business that we started with, again, we assume that we're doing well in that core area. To me, those are the fundamentals. If you don't do these three things in the middle, like focus on those first. You got to get the fundamentals. But let's go beyond that. So the first is the influencers. Influencers are the folks that will show you the fun. They're going to get the conversation started, and they've got their own fan bases, right? These are the folks that can really take what you've got and explain your story to the world in a more detailed way than a marketing pitch or an ad on Facebook ever could. So one style of influencer is the advocate. And if you look at some pretty big brands out there today, like Harley-Davidson or Mini, these companies do a really great job of building an advocacy base. Take Mini, for example. My wife, this is actually my wife's car. She owns a Mini, and every time we drive around in that Mini, the other folks are waving, all the other Mini drivers wave at each other. They all customize their cars, and they've got their own like decals and different kinds of tires. Every car looks a little bit different. It's personal. There are groups of Mini drivers, and they come together and they go on like drives together, and they have lunch together and these kinds of things. And every Mini owner I've met and talked to says that's a fun car. You should go drive one of those. They're fun. Little stick shift go-kart kind of a thing. Woo! They're advocating for this brand pretty powerfully. And this is no accident. Mini does work. They are fostering this environment. They think about it a lot. From the time that I walk into the showroom to look at the car, all the way through every single time I have a birthday. I get an anniversary. I get a note that says, hey, it's your car's birthday, right? They've got their whole room set up to have all the different customizations, and they really try to make it yours and personal. They've absolutely thought about this. And game developers can also think about how to develop advocacy as well and start to implement techniques to foster that. Here's an example from a game called League of Legends. They have been doing many things to foster advocates, but here's 2 examples. The first on the right is a picture. That's Annie and her bear Tibbers, and that is drawn by a fan. So the League of Legends guys did not make that picture. A fan made that picture, and Riot said, that's an awesome picture, and they posted it on their website, and they told the other fans about that awesome picture, and celebrate it, right? So they're getting their fan base to start talking about their game, and they're encouraging it. The other component here is they've got mechanisms inside the game to encourage you to bring your friends into the game. So it sort of brings in that viral component. That's good. I just turned it off. Okay, perfect. All right. The next tier of influencers, so that was advocates, and those are folks that are just like people who love your stuff and they talk about it. The next layer is professionals. Professionals are folks that, for a living, do things like play games. In other worlds, this might be radio broadcasters or things like that. Professional reviewers in game magazines, those kinds of things. So this is a guy named Reynad. He is playing a game called Hearthstone. He just won. And he's playing this game on a site called Twitch TV. And Twitch is a place where you can go watch people play games and you can actually talk to them. So while he's playing this game, you can see him looking over at the camera sometimes and talking. He's actually answering questions from his fans and his spectators and talking about his strategies or just talking about whatever he thinks is cool and fun. To put it in perspective, he's got 209,000 favorites, so people who want to know every time he comes online, and he's got 18 million views. So he's got quite a bit of a base. We ran a promotion with him where you would get, because Amazon has Hearthstone on its in its store, and if you get Hearthstone through Amazon, you'll get back extra coins and things like this. So he was talking about this promotion, so you can get basically extra cards. And we got 263,000 views, 10 million minutes of video watched, and each watcher watched on average for 65 minutes. Now, I don't know how much you'd have to pay for an ad like that. It's a pretty powerful thing to say 10 million minutes watched with a celebrity talking about your game at the same time. Okay. So let's go one step further. There's that whole tier of professionals, and I think there's just another layer. These are like the celebrities. This is a person named PewDiePie. He's the most subscribed guy on YouTube. He plays games and has really hilarious reactions to them. And he played a game called Flappy Bird. Folks have heard of Flappy Bird? I'm just curious about how yeah, there's a lot of folks. Okay. So how did you hear about it? You probably weren't like looking through the store and browsing for like, I want a little bird game, or, you know, it wasn't one of those deals. It was probably one of your friends said, look how far I got, can you beat me, right? And it was probably a thing where an advocate was bringing it to your attention. Well, what started them? PewDiePie played this game on January 27th, and immediately after playing it, you can see the Google Trends spike. So his base of super advocates would get it, play it, talk about it, and it would start trickling down, and pretty soon, after a few degrees of separation, we would start hearing about it. So pretty powerful to have somebody like this bring it into the mainstream. You certainly see examples like this in worlds outside of video games. There are all sorts of celebrity endorsements, of course. There's a show in the States called Shark Tank where people bring their ideas in, and there's a set of investors who say, I want to buy that, or I want to invest in it, or I don't. Those products often take off after they talk about it, whether they like it or not. So celebrities is another tier of influencers. So let's talk about how games today are building advocates. This is a game called Nuclear Throne by a company called Vlambeer. In fact, Rami is going to talk here today at 5. I would highly encourage you to come back and listen to his talk. He's pretty interesting and exciting. They are streaming the development of their game on Twitch. So they're making the art and making the code of the game live with their audience. And this is pretty cool because the audience can say things like, No, make that guy look more muscular. No, I like lasers. No, I like, these kinds of things. Make him faster. And that makes them invested in the game. They're having a conversation with, first of all, somebody who's they aspire to be like, and they're excited by, and are practically celebrities in the viewer's own eyes. But they're also there and invested in that game and a part of it. And the Vlambeer has 11,000 folks who have favorited them and want to know every time they go online, and they have 8 million views. So before they've ever launched the game, they've already got a fan base. How powerful is it going to be for them to announce the launch? And how powerful will it be when all of those folks say, I was there. I was there before it launched. I was there when it launched. I told all my friends about it. You guys should come play this game now that it's available to you because I have special sneak peek access, and let's go. In fact, one of the really cool things is if you subscribe to Vlambeer for $12.99, you get the game. So you get early access and all these kinds of things. Wow, that's pretty cool. Like they're literally selling the game and building a base before that ever gets going. I think this is a really powerful space, especially for indies, and is a great way to develop a really tight connection that I think in a lot of times big companies today at least can't do. They don't have the permission and flexibility to start rolling out what they're doing well before they launch it. They've got to be all secretive. So this is powerful. Here's another example. This is a company called Steamroller Studios. They are, in this video, starting to work out a product line. So they're going to build some minifigs here. This is one of their characters in their game, and some plush toys. They stream with their entire team at once. So on the right-hand column, you can see they've got the producer and the designer and the coder. They've got the team working together, and they'll literally switch back and forth and talk about what they're working on at the moment. And they were preparing for a conference called PAX a few months back, a month back maybe. And as a part of that, they were saying, hey, if you buy the t-shirt, we'll give you a game for free. And they had a t-shirt with their logo on it and things like that. And so it was actually really cool because the audience could be a part of it and could express that they love what they're doing with the t-shirt. And the other part of it was, from the developer's perspective, wow, now I've got people walking around with my t-shirt, and you know that somebody's going to ask about it, and they're going to talk about it, so I'm building that advocacy base right away. So these guys have started it really early on. Yeah, this is where they're trying to figure out how the model will look for plush toy. Again, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for folks to build advocacy. So one of the things to think about is it's a mind shift to think about how to foster an advocacy group. Beyond just making a really fun game, you have to think about who will be your advocates and what do they care about. And this is one example. Imagine you're only on one particular device or a narrow segment of things, right? And you go to an advocacy base and you say, hey, we're all here on this one device. They really have a hard time spreading the message because their fan base may or may not be on that device. Now, you might pick an advocate that is all about a certain device, and then it works perfect. But you've got to think about ways that block your advocates from telling your story. And the biggest one I can think of is being everywhere, right? If you can have your devices be on PCs, be on all the different stores, iOS and Google Play and Amazon App Store, and then be on maybe even consoles, and start thinking through where do you need to be and what needs to happen. Make it easy for those advocates to tell your story. If their fans say, but I don't have it, then the advocates are going to say, well, I shouldn't be telling this story because it's not good for my fans, right? So this is one aspect, but really put yourself in that mindset of what can I do to make their life better? Make sure you're there to support that. So does it really matter? Does it really matter if you have advocates and stronger engagement and these kinds of things? This is a company called Aptentive. They have done studies on this. Their business model is to work with developers to make early connections and connect often with fans. And whenever something goes right or whenever something goes wrong, they're there to help. They're there to get the developer and the customer talking to each other and make things better, right? And to really boost the love of the brand. So what they show is early engagement results in about a 4 times boost in retention, and that retention sustains over time. So they're definitely seeing a strong correlation between a group of advocates and connecting and building that advocacy base early over the long haul. And then one of the top findings you can probably imagine from our how to monetize your app most effectively is really get engagement and really get number of sessions and all those kinds of things right. So there's a lot of stuff about getting your store right and all the items and pricing, but it all hinges on this engagement. So this is a powerful way to do that. So if you think about getting your game to a really broad audience, to the mainstream, there's sort of a cliff to start. And influencers help you get up over that cliff. If you think about all the apps that customers see, that the mainstream sees, it's pretty hard to know which ones are good, which ones are bad, what they're all about, and what's different about yours versus all the rest. Influencers help bridge that gap. They have more time to tell the message. They have more time to show the message than you do, particularly if you're thinking about going through ads or that kind of stuff. So this getting to these influencers is a pretty key way to get up that initial step to get into the mainstream. Okay. Let's go into the second piece. That was about influencers. The next one's about content creation. And the end result of more content creation is you're going to have a greater variety of gameplay and you're going to have a longer lasting experience, both of which are really critical to the lifeblood of a really strong business. So let's look at a few different pieces of content creators. The first is, I'll classify these folks as entertainers. If you look at YouTube and you sort the most popular channels by number of subscribers, you will see this chart, and three of the top 4 are game players. So PewDiePie, all these folks are on the top, and they are above who you might expect to be up there. The Rihannas, the One Directions, the main bands, all those kinds of folks. They're more followed than them. PewDiePie has 7.9 billion views, 33 million subscribers. It's pretty out there. Another flavor of entertainers. These are folks that are streaming on Twitch, and they're also getting pretty entrenched. Twitch has 100 million unique users a month, and 168 minutes watched per month. The average person goes in there and watches 168 minutes a month. And 106 minutes per day is what the average user would watch. 106 minutes per day. There's 16 billion minutes of video watched per month. And these folks, like Syndicate, the number 1 there, he plays a lot of Minecraft. He's got 1.6 million followers. The number 2 guy there is Riot Games. These are the folks who make League of Legends. So the number 2 slot is actually a developer starting to promote their games. And they show a lot of esports and things like that. Outside of entertainment, so beyond just like, that's really fun, that guy's interesting to watch and things, some people go watch videos and all these kinds of broadcasters for education. Some games are a little more depth in their strategy and maybe the itemization plans and these kinds of things. So here's an example. Hearthstone is a card-based game, and people will often watch that to figure out what kinds of decks to build and how to counter other decks and these kinds of things. On education, League of Legends is an example where you have a lot of different characters you can choose from, and each of those characters you can build in different ways with different items, and you can watch folks teach you best practices for those different characteristics. Another flavor of content is esports. So this is a picture of the World Championships for League of Legends. And there is a stadium full of people, and there are 10 folks in the middle lined up with 5 computers each, and they're playing this game with each other. And that group of 5 folks right here is they're the commentators. They're the folks that are doing the play-by-play of how the game is going. It'll be just like you might see any other sport, where they're going and they're talking, I don't know if that guy's doing what he should be doing, and then all of a sudden a fight will break out, And their pitch will go up. They go, oh my God, here it goes. He's going in. It's also going. And they go crazy, right? And they're really getting the audience into it and showing the whole story. It's a full-on sport. Another form of content creation is fan art. So it's enabling the fans of your game to express themselves and share what they think is really cool. This is a game called Club Penguin. It's a kids MMO. And these are pictures that the fans have drawn and sent back in. And this is the kind of thing that has a couple different really exciting factors to it. One is for the team themselves to see this kind of stuff coming in, it's really inspiring. Like, it's just amazing to think that some kids spent their morning drawing this and they sent it in to you to share it with you. It just really gets you going. So on a selfish, like personal level, like just getting fed by this kind of energy is exciting. The other side of it is, can you imagine if you're an 8-year-old and Disney puts your picture up on their website? That's really cool. Like, that's a memory that person's going to have for a very long time. And more than a memory, it's inspiring. Like, you might really encourage that kid to stand up and be bold and talk about what they care about, and they're going to be rewarded for it. So I think there's a lot of really powerful things that can happen with things like fan art. Another component of content creation is it gives you the ability to have a lot of content. And it's really important for engagement and long-term retention and long-term interest in your game to have a lot of content. I think everybody's probably seen this happen in Minecraft. There are all sorts of ways to have entirely different worlds. Every time a movie comes out, it seems, there's somebody else coming along and making a mod that will allow you to experience that movie in the Minecraft world, right? There's a lot of stuff happening here. Another example is with Trivia Crack. This is a game where it's a bunch of quizzes and you battle with your friends and try to see who can answer the quizzes the best and stuff like that. They have a factory for generating questions that are based on suggestions from the fans. And it helps them in a bunch of ways. One is they are generating more questions for free, and those questions are highly relevant to the moment and to the location. I saw them at Mobile World Congress, for example, in Spain, and they were having a contest where people were submitting questions about Mobile World Congress. So as you were playing questions that were relevant to the moment in that conference. That's very powerful. The other component to it is the fans themselves say if they like the questions or don't like the questions, so they weed out the good ones from the bad ones. And the fans themselves are, again, a part of the content creation. They're part of the game story. So if you're so invested in the game that you're building the content, you're going to play that with your friends. You're going to tell your friends about it. It's incredibly powerful. And this company has grown, and it's been an extreme crazy ride for them, and super exciting. A lot of it is due to the fact that they've really embraced from the core the way they've designed their game to be based on fans and the input from fans. It wasn't a bolt-on. It was a core part of the strategy from the beginning. All right, so that gets us to the third component, which is to find ways to generate alternate revenue. And these can be alternate revenue for you or alternate revenue for the folks that are helping you cultivate a fan base. One technique for doing this is physical products. You saw that video on Twitch before where Steamroller Studios was off making a little figurine, and they were making a plush toy. There are a lot of companies doing this today and getting their brand out. These kinds of things are great in clearly it's awesome for an advocate to be able to just say, I've got the shirt. Here's Nom Nom. Here's, let's go. It's also really powerful because it allows more people, even people who don't play the game, to enjoy your game and to share your game. So I could give that plush toy of my singing monster to my grandchild. And now I'm a part of the story with them, even though I've never played the game, right? The other part is, one of the things that you need to do as a part of all of this is nurture your super fans. Like the people who are really going big for you, nurture that and support that and how powerful would it be if one day they open up their front door and there's a package with a stuffed plush toy of their favorite character from the game? That kind of thing can go a really long way. So, and another facet of this is we've started piloting with a few different companies some ideas around this, and they saw, in comparison to, if they get rid of some of their advertising space and they put in some space that says, hey, here's some plush toys or here's some phone cases or whatever, they found that space monetizes 3 to 10 times better than ads. So there's a lot of potential there. Another facet of generating alternate revenue is through crowdfunding. So one of the folks I used to work with was Star Long, who's a guy who made Ultima Online long ago. They're building a new MMO right now called Shroud of the Avatar, which is pretty exciting. They raised almost $2 million on Kickstarter, and they've raised about $4 million since then. And that gives people early access into the game and so forth, but also funds the game. This is one of the ways they're generating revenue before they've even launched the game. So super powerful. And the only way you can do that is with a fan base. It's very hard to do crowdfunding just as if you were trying to get customers for your game in the first place, right? You've got to go foster that fan base really even before you start doing your Kickstarter. The next component here is you can see that Riot on Twitch, Riot Games, the makers of League of Legends, they have 1.3 million followers and 632 million views. And the same kind of thing happens on YouTube and so forth. That's a lot of views, and those views are actually monetized. There are ads running. There's ways to subscribe. There's ways to donate. And so they're actually making money off of the advertisement of their game. Right? They're telling people about the game and making money off of it. So there's potential there too. If you want to go big, you can see there's, certainly Hollywood and things like that have done a lot to build movies based off of games. And these are no slouches. Tomb Raiders was $275 million. Prince of Persia, $338 million. Resident Evil, $53 million. Ubisoft has started their own movie studio. Now, this is out of reach for most folks. I get this as a big jump. But there's nothing stopping you from making shorts or doing YouTube-style videos or starting into the thinking of ways you can entertain your fan base based on your storyline and your content even earlier. And there certainly is the possibility for this kind of thing to happen. Okay, so that'll give you the overview of the different facets that you would need to pull together to build a fan base. Let's talk about some techniques you can use. So the first part is excuse me, supporting your influencers. As I was saying before, you really need to relate to their audience. What is it they're trying to do? They are not going to do something that's foreign to their audience or off-putting to their audience. They are about their audience. They live and breathe their audience. So they are not going to stop their normal stream and go, hey guys, now it's time for an advertisement from so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. It's just not going to work in the culture of Twitch or of YouTube. You really need to be thinking about this kind of person loves rage games. So I'm going to target them. I'm going to say that I'm going to start taunting them and saying, you can't beat this game and so forth. This kind of person really loves games that are helpful and promote good in the community and happiness. And so I'm going to focus on them because we share values and we share a direction. So just really thinking about your advocates and what they need and helping them get there. Another one is be on the devices they need to be on. Prevent any kind of viral blockers. Anything that would stop them from pushing your experience to their fan base, you've got to figure out how to get rid of. Or change advocates, right? Change your focus. The next one is providing value. A lot of these folks, this is hard work. Like it may look like they're just playing games, but it's hard work. Try to go make a video for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, stream for 8 hours. That's a lot of time to be funny or to be educational or to be informative and to have your energy up and be excited. It's hard work. I mean, I know it's playing games, so it's maybe fun work, but they're doing this day in, day out. It's serious and they're focused on it. So What can you do to make their lives easier? Can you give them sneak peeks to your content? This person has an exclusive to early access so they can show their fans something new and unique that sets them out from all the other players in that category. Can you give them unlock codes or special characters? Can you give them something they can raffle off to their fan base? Can you give them something to give a reason for them to attract more fans, to grow their fan base, right? Help them by giving them extra value whenever you possibly can. And then the last one is these early folks are really, really important. And when something's important, you have to act like it's important. You can't just be like, sweet, yes, we got another advocate to talk about our stuff. It has to be like, wow, thank you, I appreciate it. Bring them into the fold, talk to them, have a relationship with them, figure out how you can help them. Like really go bend over backwards with your customer support. These folks are huge force multipliers. So really, when you see a moment where you're getting action like this, go cultivate it. It's powerful. Okay, content creation. So a couple different points here. While you're building your game, really think about ways that you can add possibilities for folks to improve your game. Built right into the fabric of your game, there should be ways for people to either tell you there's a problem, help you fix the problem, complain about something, show that they love something. The most minimal way to do this is with instrumentation, where you can do business intelligence and figure out where people are failing, and you can do A/B testing and things like that. Better is where you can actually get information from those folks. Then the other part is you can go beyond that and start saying, well, I can start incorporating your ideas into my content. You can produce new content, ship it into your game, and have the fans promote or demote that kind of that kind of stuff. They can say, I love this party, let's keep it going, or I don't like it. And you can be responsive to how they vote or react to your content. And then finally, you can think about user-generated content. Boy, how can they get their ideas into the game? And Trivia Crack was a great example of that. They've got their ideas for the question, they're pulling it into the game. Then the other part is celebrate. Like when somebody puts a little bit of effort into making your game more enjoyable for themselves and for their friends and for the other players, man, that's powerful. Like, I mean, if you just think about how you interact with your peers in the industry and how you help them, give them ideas on how to make their game better and stuff like that, and how powerful it is every time you get that kind of feedback, boy, we got to reward that. We've got to go back to these folks and say thank you, and let's promote it. I like the example with Club Penguin, where they post the pictures to the website. That's pretty neat. It's a great way of celebrating this stuff. And then, again, find ways to help them gain value. Here I don't think you're going to help folks necessarily make businesses out of this. You might be able to argue that the Minecraft model does, where you have a lot of ability to mod the games and so forth. But a lot of times this can just be the value is in, I get more enjoyment out of the game. I get some social credit for the game. Whatever your particular game loop is, give them more of that. So I get more joy, more happiness, more rage, whatever the thing might be. Okay, on the alternate revenue, so I think there's a couple different things. One is start thinking about physical goods. I think it's early on physical goods. I think it's in some ways still hard to get it figured out, but it's starting to happen. And smaller studios are able to do it. You can easily get into the t-shirt business, right? I mean, that's where there's a lot of services out there today. You can start to push on, here's your brand on t-shirts. I think that there are a few others like plush toys and stickers and phone cases and things like that that are also readily available, and it'll grow from there. So it's something you should look into and start thinking about, like, how can I pull people from outside my game and give them other ways to enjoy my game even when they're not playing it. And the thing I like about this is it's a double whammy where it lowers your user acquisition costs because people can start talking about it. Okay. And then the other one is build channels. So, these folks who are advocating for your stuff, they are doing the same thing you're doing in the sense that they're trying to build a business and they're trying to grow a followership. So what can you do to pile onto their efforts and help them gain more success? So that's another powerful way to help them out. So that's it. I'm about out of time. I would love to do a couple things real quick, though. I have a contest going on with some coworkers, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 points. So this survey here, if you guys go in and fill out the survey, please, like right now, whip out your phone and go there and fill out the survey. If I can get 100 people to give me 10 points, I get 1,000. And then all of a sudden, I'm number one in the rankings at my work, and I could just really rub it in, which I think would be awesome. So if you would do that, I would really appreciate it. If you connect with me and want to have more of a conversation, either here in person or on Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, wherever you might want to connect, I'm happy to share other information. I alluded to a lot of it here in the talk. Love talking with developers and figuring out what they're going through and sharing what we can do or figuring out how to better promote what you're trying to accomplish. So again, please go fill out that survey. I need to make this happen. Okay, we have 1 or 2 minutes for questions. Is there anybody want to ask something? Otherwise, we can talk after. Okay, awesome. I'll be here for a few minutes, and then we'll go out in the hall after that. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.